We are, Nicholas, I think, the greatest international podcasting team in the world. We have done some shit internationally, but someone couldn't fucking figure out their deal and get a certain video posted. When I took painstaking efforts to record a video, I was rizzed up to the max out on the beach, right, to make my presence known because people haven't heard my voice, Nicholas, in some time. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, the Geeks Worldwide Radio and Dork Shared Gooniverse proudly present to you the greatest, and I mean the greatest, podcasting team in the world. He's the married man, Fry guy, Nick Friar. I am COVID recovering. International man, wheeling dealing son of a gun, back cracking Dr. Joe. Nicholas, it is good to be back. We haven't done this live in some fucking time. I greatly missed it. And you got to know, the first time I had COVID, I still pulled out a Jordan flu game. I couldn't do jack fucking shit. And I was so mad I missed that interview last week. Absolutely fantastic with the guys. Shit. What was
Kill Your Darlings?
Kill Your Darlings. If you haven't listened to that interview, go do it. If you haven't read that first issue, go fucking buy it. I don't care if it's on Comixology, if you have, or if you can get it at your local comic shop. That first issue, Nicholas, was fucking fantastic.
Yeah. So if you're watching the stream right now, or actually if you're listening to this in your local comic book shop, on your way to your local comic book shop on Wednesday, or even maybe later on in the week of October 11th, which is my birthday,
We'll get there, Nicholas.
The second printing of Kill Your Darlings issue 1 is out. So you got another chance at getting it. So make sure you go pick that up. But yes, definitely listen to the interview, Joe. And I gotta say, you're giving me shit for that, but you know what, you rat bastard friggin' weasel. This is the third time I've gotten fucking cucked on a book for an interview. This time you couldn't even have the fucking decency to show up for it. So that's why you got dragged in that interview. And my goodness, did it feel so good to be. I felt so seen in the Kill Your Darlings interview. My God, thanks to those guys. I had a great time chatting with them. I really did.
Dude, I was so bummed out because I really was having a case of FOMO, and I didn't leave my fucking bed for like 5 days.
Ugh, yeah,
it was fucking brutal. But we're not
unlike
here.
Anything else, man. I'll never forget having that because I'm a big believer in you sweat it out. Like when you get the flu, just sweat it out. Like, sometimes you take something to help. I don't even know what the medication is to help with that necessarily, but sweat it out, stay in bed. Usually like I feel better after that. I'll tell you, I sweated out a couple times. COVID, it didn't do shit. Yeah. I was like, oh, I feel better. And then like 15 minutes later, it's like, what happened?
Dude, walking up and down the stairs was a goddamn chore. Yep. It was fucking brutal, man. Anyways,
rock your system. But anyways,
we're not here to talk about COVID. We're here to talk about the good shit. But before we do, Nicholas, tell people where they can hear that interview with the great guys from Kill Your Darlings, and just follow us in general. Will you?
Yes, of course. So you can follow us in general on Twitter, or X, as some people like to call it. Now the kids like to call it, Twitter. I believe. We're also on Threads as well, though we're not as active on there. I'd like to see Threads make a comeback. Not us, I just mean in general. On Instagram, we're at TLDR_pod on all of those platforms. You can also find us on TikTok. We are very, very active on TikTok. A lot of highlights on there. If you want to brighten up your day a little bit with me and Joe right in your friggin' face. We're also on YouTube. You can find us there. But the only place you can find Fireside Chats is over on our audio channel. So that's Apple, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, SoundCloud, Amazon, anywhere, all the major podcasting platforms you can find us. And if you have come across us on Twitter or Instagram, and you're like, hey, I'm hearing this now, and this is a total bullshit. You're not on the app that I listen to. Let us know. We'll make sure we get on there, but we are on the major ones for sure. Only place you can find Fireside Chats. And make sure you subscribe to the show so that way you get those episodes delivered right to your listening device. All the episodes of TLDR will get delivered right to your listening device. And not only subscribe, please leave a rating and review. It helps the show out a ton. And 5 stars only if it's on Apple. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of Backrack. And I'll tell you, you do not want to know. It's worse than Bane and Batman. I'll tell you that right friggin' now. But yes, that is all I think I have to share on that. And before we get into our book show, there is a show that I know you want to weigh in on. I've only got to say a little bit about it over on Change My Mind because Wes is not the biggest Star Wars guy, but Ahsoka has wrapped up since the last time you and I convened. I absolutely loved it. I did get to offer some opinions on it, but I'm curious. I don't know actually where you stood on the finale.
I mean, I loved the series, and I thought for a casual to more than casual Star Wars fan, I thought it was. I mean, what I loved most about it was that there's a lot of action. There's a lot of lightsabers. We want lightsabers. And but when I was thinking about it more and more, because I watched the finale, and I was a little underwhelmed by the finale, only because like I think what the finale really did, like it obviously is setting up for the next season, but like I've been rewatching Rebels, but I haven't watched the Clone Wars in some time. It's been a while since, and I didn't like do any sort of refresher, and I felt like the finale was like really catered to the extra, like the extreme hardcore Clone Wars, because I had to fucking look up and remember what the hell the Mortis gods were and like what the statues meant at the end of the episode. And I felt like the casual Star Wars fan, or maybe the, like you said, slightly more casual, like what, like oh shit, like if they never watched Clone Wars before, then you like don't know what half this shit means. And it was still a really good series. But like I felt like that's what the finale was really catering to, was like those hardcore. So I think that's why it felt underwhelming. Now, had I been more up to date on Clone Wars, and had I like if I had been like really into it and more obsessed about it, I probably would have thought the finale would have been like, oh fuck, that was fucking awesome. But I felt a little underwhelmed, but I'm gonna go back and rewatch it, because I think there was a lot of stuff in there that, now that like I've gone back and I've watched some of those key episodes of Clone Wars, and I'll go back and rewatch it. I gotta say though, I love Thrawn. He is awesome. He's just the fucking best.
Thrawn is great. Ahsoka is great. Balin's Skull is great.
Oh, so sad that Ray Stevenson died too, because his character was the balls. I will say though, my one thing, there's two things about the show that weren't my favorite. I didn't like the live action look of what's her name, the green broad there,
Hera. Yeah, I know that.
Hera, thank you.
Her like ears, I guess,
just the overall, like the colors, like I think it was the face, like it just. And then I wasn't a huge fan of Sabine. I thought Sabine was a little too meh.
If there was one thing about the show for me, and I don't think it's, but I don't. Okay, I think Sabine is fine. Like Rich, a friend of the show, Rich Keefe, who we can't thank enough for stepping up so much over the past month while we've kind of been dealing with traveling and obviously my wedding and everything like that. And by the way, speaking of that, if you guys don't follow us on Instagram already, you are seriously missing out. My wedding gave us an amazing image of Dr. Joe, and it is going to be a meme that I think lives on in Dork Shared Gooniverse lore for quite some time.
I think it'll have to be our Sunday Instagram post.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I do. That is amazing.
And if the fine folks at AWA are listening, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm putting the cover of Sacrament.
Oh, yeah. We won't tell you what Joe started things off with. Make sure you go check out our Instagram. It's worth it just for that alone. But for me, I'm like, Rich is a huge Sabine fan. And I've always thought like, and I didn't watch Rebels till I'd heard it a little bit more from you and a little bit more from them. Because when I first tried it, it was like, oh, it feels like a kid's show. Definitely turns out to be an amazing show as you go along.
It started off as more of a kid's show.
Right. But I never like loved Sabine. I always felt like she was still pretty much the same in this show for me. So I'm not the biggest Sabine fan, just in general. So again, not a bad character, just doesn't really move the needle for me. But Shin Hati, I liked Morgan Elsbeth as well. All of them, like, and I really hope that, and it sucks about, obviously, like you said, Ray Stevenson, that it's so sad, obviously for many other reasons, but like, I'd love to see him continue on with this character. I will say I listened to Dork's review of it, and I heard Davey bring up Carl Urban, who I feel pretty comfortable if he stepped into the role, but I think a listener might have been our guy Bubbles, but I think he mentioned Liv Schreiber, and I think that would be
the one.
Yeah, I think that would be outstanding.
Because he's a great actor, and I think he looks a lot like him.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And he could probably mimic the voice a little bit, like Caleb. And
yes, I think, yeah. I really hope that one of those two get that role. I think that Filoni's doing it. He's gonna he'll be able to figure it out, or whoever cast Ray Stevenson originally will be able to figure it out. But I do think Liev Schreiber makes a lot of sense for that role. But outstanding, definitely a top 3 Star Wars live action show season. So like, I mean, I don't know what Mandalorian one would be top 3. I feel like I would absolutely put Andor in the top 3 comfortably. 4 comfortably, maybe 3. I don't know if I'd have 2 Mandalorian seasons in there. But yeah, an outstanding show. And it might be my favorite overall. For me, the biggest thing is like the aura of that show. I love the darkness and everything to it. I mean, Ezra was awesome too. A character who, again, in the show, like he had his moments, but again, like similar to Sabine, he didn't really do it for me. I was more a fan of Kanan and Hera, and then Thrawn, and then the overall like the way that the flow of Rebels. But now in live action, I loved Ezra. I thought he was awesome.
He nailed all the actor nailed all the mannerisms. It was great.
Yeah,
I think they all did for the most part. And this might be my favorite live action Star Wars thing since Rogue One, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow. That's saying something. That's a conversation though for another day. We've done enough on motion picture stuff. Let's get to some still image books. And let's do a little catching up for me. Since we got to talk about Ahsoka a little bit, I caught up on a ton of shit. There's still some other stuff to catch up on, but I'll tell you what. One of the things after getting married, I now have a little extra time to read. Been doing a lot of spooky season watching too. So in the middle of watching the Haunting of Hill House, which Lord knows that would terrify you, scaring me quite a bit. But what have you been catching up on that you wanted to highlight?
So while I was, overseas, abroad, if you will, an international man of mystery, I did a shit ton of reading, and I'm not gonna, list everything here that I caught up on, but there was a couple books I did want to mention. One, Sins of the Salton Sea, the finale of that from AWA. That was such a satisfying ending. That was such a good series. I can't wait to talk about it on the show. Mm-hmm. It was so fucking good. And that's a book like AWA lately. The series have been just, I use this term a lot, but it's been high octane right from the rip. First panel, the first page, the last panel, the last page. It was such an excellent series. I cannot recommend this one enough. The other one I read was Rare Flavors, written by Rom V with art by Felipe Andrade. Now, this is a team that wrote The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, and so the art, Felipe Andrade's art, might not be for everyone. It's a little, it's a little different, but it's excellent when paired with Rom V's writing style. And The Many Deaths of Layla Starr is not a book that I would typically read. It was very existential, very meta, there's, life and death and what happens. It was such an excellent series. And that team is now doing Rare Flavors. And again, like, the art might not be your cup of tea, but it is so good when paired with Rom V's writing. And so this Rare Flavors, if you think about it real quick, and it's a little macabre, if you think of it on sort of that macabre level, like Rare Flavors, what could we be dealing with here? And I don't want to really give it away, but it is a really excellent first issue, very intriguing, and really sort of like, by the, like, you think you kind of know where it's going, and it's kind of hinting at it, oh fuck, Rom's going there. This is going to be absolutely excellent. So I recommend giving that a shot. And then
nice.
This is a book that I read when I was home because it came out last week. I had no intentions of ever, and I mean ever, reading a Transformers comic book, right? It's just like, I loved it as a kid. I had some Transformer toys, but like, in terms of like reading, like, I would never search out a Transformer comic book, but there was a lot of buzz on Twitter. I was just, granted it was Daniel Warren Johnson, retweeting stuff like that, but I'm like, oh shit, like, there's some people here whose recommendations and whose opinions I value, and they're all saying wildly excellent things about this. Let me give it a shot. I texted you immediately after I finished. You got to read this book.
Yeah,
it is. I'm very excited. Like, it's so good. I believe he does the art on it as well. And Daniel Warren Johnson, he's a great writer. He did Do a Power Bomb, which I absolutely loved. There's another book that I read by him. There was a sci-fi horror, and the title is escaping me right now. But I am on the Daniel Warren Johnson train, baby. This guy can write, and he knows how to tell a story. Yeah. And I was absolutely blown away by this first issue. of a Transformers comic.
Yeah, and I'm not even like you. You like Transformers as a kid. I like Beast Wars. That was it. Like that was my only thing for Transformers. Like I mean, and obviously you and I are 10 years apart in age, so there's a little bit of difference. But like, I agree with you. Like I never cared about Transformers comics, and then Skybound gets it, and the way they introduce it and announce it is in such an amazing way. And then it's like, oh, you know what? I might need to give this a look. So I have not given it a read yet. It is on my short list of stuff to read, like for what's up next. Again, still got a few things to catch up on. But I am very excited to hear that you like it, and then all the praise that it's getting. I got to imagine that I'm gonna enjoy this as well. So awesome stuff there. Before we get into what's new too, I do want to let everybody know that the book that I'm doing, we are starting DORKtober. Finally, we got a little bit of a delayed start, although Kill Your Darlings was a good way to kind of kick things off, because that was definitely a jarring first issue, and the second issue is awesome too. But yeah, we're getting into some spooky books. I feel like we had a lot of interviews last year, so we didn't get to do it this year. So I am very excited for us to get rolling on that one. But before we do that, we got to go through what's new, what's out this week, Joe. We got a few trades that we wanted to touch on, just to let people know that they're out in case they've been trade waiting, maybe fell behind on stuff. What do you got for me?
So from Marvel, we have Volume 7 of Darth Vader and Volume 7 of X-Force. Yeah,
awesome.
I love that Darth Vader's gone this long. It's been out. This is maybe the longest running series right now that I've been reading outside of Something Is Killing Your Children and Daredevil. Those are the three that I really have been reading for a long time. From DC, we have Harley Quinn Volume 2. From Image, we have Nocterra Volume 3. That seems to be the end for now. It could come back at some point, but that was if you haven't been all caught up on that. That last issue was a doozy. I Hate This Place Volume 2. That's from Skybound.
Images, you're talking about the book. Okay, I was gonna say that's
I know. Okay. I don't hate you, Nicholas, as much as I think you're a piece of shit.
I do have slick back hair.
You do. From Boom, we have Power Rangers Unlimited, Call to Darkness. And why the fuck is Berserker Volume 3 coming out now? That book is like 10 years old, it seems like.
I don't know. I don't know. I got to come clean with you, though. I did get sloppy steaks while I was in Greece, too. I just want to be fully... Did you
get a lot of tzatziki sauce?
Yeah. We got a lot of octopus, a lot of Greek pizza.
Whoa. Keep this as a clean podcast. We don't need to know you and Lauren.
I don't know what you're talking about. You better pray to God she didn't hear that from you, because I didn't do shit. I didn't drink shit. I didn't do shit. Anyways, excuse me. Sorry. But that's it for trades this week, correct? That we know of, at least.
Yeah. Those are the big boys from trades. So let's. What were we gonna say?
I was gonna give you a second to catch your breath as we get into the single issues. I know you got a lot to say, because Lord knows you've been out for a while, allegedly sick, and allegedly in parts unknown.
I hate you.
All right, what friggin' deadbeat. Tell us what's coming up from Marvel this week.
Welcome back, asshole. Missed you. From Marvel, we have The Amazing Spider-Man issue 35, Venom issue 26, Wolverine issue 38, which I got caught up on too. I haven't read this issue yet, but as always, Benjamin Percy's fucking killing it. X-Men Red issue 16, The Avengers issue 6, Guardians of the Galaxy issue 7, Blade issue 4, The Superior Spider-Man issue 1, which I meant to read, I just didn't get a chance to get to. Okay. Moon Knight City of the Dead issue 4, Magneto issue 3, Spider-Man India issue 5, The Mandalorian season 2 issue 5, written by friend of the show Rodney Barnes, Silver Surfer Rebirth Legacy issue 2, and then we have Cap Wolf and the Howling Commandos issue 1. Moon Knight versus Werewolf, Marvel Tales issue 1, and Captain Marvel Assault on Eden issue 1.
Okay, interesting. There's a couple in there too that I got to catch up on. Guardians of the Galaxy, Blade. Obviously not as far behind on Blade, but Guardians I am a little bit behind on. But that's like a Western, the Guardians of the Galaxy story. So I have been enjoying that. I'll check out a few more issues before I make the call about talking about on the show. But we've never done anything Guardians related on the show, so would love to be able to talk about it here in some capacity. From DC this week, we got Green Lantern issue 4, World's Finest Teen Titans issue 4, Superman Lost issue 7, Superboy, The Man of Tomorrow issue 6, Batman City of Madness issue 1, Danger Street, issue 10. Wesley Dodds, The Sandman, issue 1. So this is the original Sandman, not Neil Gaiman's Sandman. So if you want to check that out, we did see him pop up in the Night Terrors event from DC. I know you're not interested in that, Joe, but I know you are interested in Batman and Robin. Issue 2 of that comes out this week.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read this yet, but I am. This has been a fun series so far, so looking forward to reading that. From AWA this week, we have The Madness issue 3. We didn't get our review copy this week, so as soon as I get my hands on the floppy, I will read that and throw a video out for everyone, because I've been. This has been a series that has been absolutely. This is J. Michael Straczynski. Absolutely loving this. I mean, the first issue, I think I said, was my favorite first issue from AWA this year. So can't wait to get my hands and read that. And then from Boom Studios, we got a couple books, two of which we're going to dive into a little bit here. We have House of Slaughter issue 18, Firefly, The Fall Guys issue 2, and Mech Cadets issue 3. And Nicholas, why don't you start us off here from Boom with your book?
Yeah. So one of the books that I did catch up on in the course while we were both away from one another was Damn Them All, issue 9. And this is a Cy Spurrier joint and Charles Adlard. And we now are 9 issues. And I talked about this in full on the show a little while back. Definitely an interesting book to check out at this time of year. The first trade of that came out a little while back, so you'll be able to look into that. But the new wrinkle that's getting thrown in here for Ellie is we have an ex-lover who's being thrown in the mix. And then also there's another character who over the last couple issues has kind of had their world turned upside down in some capacity as well. Get a little bit of more insight into that. But Ellie's lover who came into the mix back in issue 8, he's doing some stuff that seems a little bit off, to say the least, and he's put Ellie in quite the predicament. So it's, again, like it's one of those books where you need to set aside a decent amount of time to read this, because there's a lot to it. Cy Spurrier really, like, he builds in a lot of layers and likes to tie everything together at the end. So it's like there's a lot to take in. And then you got to really consider every single thing that's being said, because it could be invaluable at the end of the arc. So really enjoying this series. Again, for those who are longtime, Constantine Hellblazer fans, this is definitely something that you want to check out if you have not already. But I'm really enjoying Damn Them All. Obviously, issue 9 out from Boom Studios now. But what do you got for me?
So I've got Hunt for the Skinwalker issue 2.
Oh yeah.
And Jesus Christ, Nicholas, this is. So I think I mentioned this last time. Like I even realized I've needed to read like sort of Alien, or I wouldn't call this an alien abduction story, but like this is the second book I've read within the past few months that it's sort of dealt with extraterrestrials. But like with Blue Book, it was more about, like, it was based upon this sort of famous abduction that happened up in New Hampshire, up in the White Mountains, and supposed abduction. And this, I think I mentioned it as well. I didn't realize it's sort of based around a real story, out in the West. And this second issue, man, like, this is such a great story. It takes place on a farm, and this farmer, is just trying to make a living for himself with his cattle, and has settled his family there. And the shit that happens in this issue, Nicholas, just, has these farmers not only at their wits' end, but like, it was really well drawn and really well sort of paced out, where you're just like, fuck, holy shit. Are you oh fuck, I gotta wait till daytime to read this again. Like, it wasn't like inherently like horrifying, if that makes sense, but like there was something about it. It was very palpable, where you could just feel the anxiety. It felt very real, like it felt like this could happen. And I think that was like, there was a realism to it, which I think is absolutely excellent when you're dealing with a comic book, and you're dealing with something like with with an antagonist that you can't necessarily see. You're just sort of dealing with the aftermath of what's happening. And there was some imagery in this book that, again, wasn't horrific, but you're just like, fuck, holy smokes. So this is, if you're into aliens, And even if you're not, I think it's just a really, really good comic series, and this is issue 2, so you can still early enough to catch on, and read it.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a prompt. It also reminded me that I looked this up before we recorded this week's episode. Lauren and I were recently in Buffalo for a wedding, and the hotel that we stayed at, where all the ceremony, like the reception was and everything, found out it was haunted. It's like an old place, and we found out, like, we thought it might be haunted, and it turns out it is.
While in Buffalo, did you get yourself a garbage plate?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, so this
I got wings.
Well, you fucking wings anywhere.
But they're buffalo wings.
They're no fucking different in Buffalo than they are. Yeah,
it's still pretty good.
No, but because the bars in Buffalo are open till like 4 a.m, like they're open like stupid late. So a garbage plate is like when you're absolutely fucking shit faced, and you just like it's one of those styrofoam take home containers, and in it is like macaroni salad and like 2 burger patties and French fries and just all the shit that you absolutely crave. It'll sober you up like that. The things are fucking. It's like 8,000 calories in those things. Absolutely delicious.
You lost me on macaroni salad, but I at least got to watch the Bills lose in a Buffalo bar, so that was great.
You don't eat macaroni salad?
No.
Why don't you eat fucking macaroni salad?
Because it doesn't taste good. It's like chicken salad. It doesn't taste good.
Oh, get the fuck out of here. What the fuck do you know?
Let's move over to
You went to North. God damn it. You don't know anything.
All right. So this week we got Operation Sunshine issue 1, which I did check out. Didn't really do it for me. Leave it at that. Murder Inc. Jagger Rose issue 6. And then you got a one-shot from Dark Horse that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so Usagi Yojimbo is back at Dark Horse, and that was one of the books that I caught up with, sort of continuing the story. Stan Sakai's sort of picking up the story of Usagi Yojimbo from where they left off with IDW. It'd been a good while since I'd gotten the Usagi Yojimbo issue. And so I've been seeing a lot on Instagram and Twitter about Space Usagi. So I was like, how are they going to do this? Is this going to be a new series? I know that there's history of Usagi Yojimbo and the Ninja Turtles and Usagi in space back in the early 90s. So I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know there was a one shot, however. And so I'm reading this and I'm like, this is the story that has been going on in the last Usagi Yojimbo issue and had been going on for the past 20 something issues. What? And then the way Stan flips it and the way he sort of brings Usagi Yojimbo into the future, this was just a really fun book. It was a one shot. I kind of wish now that it was more. There was a couple more issues to go along with this.
That's good to
hear.
Because
of where it could have gone and what he could have done with it. But if you're like me, you're a fan of Usagi Yojimbo. I mean, you're obviously going to enjoy it. But there was just a fun little twist. I love how Stan Sakai sort of merged those two things together and broke a bit of a barrier there, which was a little weird, but fun at the same time. So I highly recommend reading this. It's just a one shot. So you won't be super lost if you haven't been reading Usagi Yojimbo. You don't even really need to know what had been going on because it's the way Stan Sakai, wrote this and put this together. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's good. So it sounds like a good re-entry point for everybody and those who are new. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. All right. I'll fly through some of these before we get to we have one publisher that we want to do a couple talk about a few books a piece on that. We take a guess which one that is. From IDW this week, we got Sonic the Hedgehog issue 65, TMNT versus Street Fighter issue 4, The Hunger in the Dusk issue 3, which I believe you're reading that series, Joe.
Excellent.
Your Earth Divers issue 11, TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures Halloween Special issue 1, which Saturday Morning Adventures TMNT, you've been recommending that for younger readers, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Star Trek, I think I might get my nephews that one. That's Trek Halloween issue 2, Sonic the Hedgehog Halloween Special issue 1, Star Trek Day of Blood Director's Cut issue 1, My Little Pony Classics Reimagined, The Unicorn of Odd issue 2, Skybound, we got The Walking Dead Deluxe issue 73 and Creepshow issue 2. From Titan, Bloodborne, The Bleak Dominion issue 2, and then Scarlet Couture, the Munich Files issue 3, which you are on top of that one, Joe. Dynamite, Army of Darkness Forever issue 1, which is by Tony Fleeks.
Which I mentioned that because the previous Army of Darkness arc was done by Rodney Barnes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Garbage Pail Kids, Trashing Through Time, issue 1. From Top Cow, we got Destiny Gate, issue 1, which I know you read that one, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have to reread this one and then see where the second issue goes, because I think there was a lot of potential here, but there was points where it's like, do I fully understand what's going on here? And that could just be a me thing. That's why I want to reread it and give the second issue a shot. But there was potential here, but I don't remember it sort of knocking me off my socks.
Gotcha. And then Project Reese issue 3 is coming out from Mad Cave Studios this week. And then we have, of course, Image. Undiscovered Country issue 26. Fireflies issue 2.
Fish flies. Come on.
Fish flies. Did I say fireflies? Sorry.
You did.
My bad. I'm Ron Burgundy. Something Epic issue 6. Kaya issue 12. Knights issue 1, which I think I meant to check that one out because we had a few number 1s out from Image this week.
We had a bunch of number 1s.
Yeah. Weird Work issue 4, Quest issue 3. Then we both have a number 1, and then we also have some other ongoings that we want to talk about. I will let you go first. What do you got for me?
Okay. So this one I called dibs on. And it's like I gotta do it. This is a book I think that's right up my alley. So this is A Haunted Girl, and can you pull up the writer? I think it's Ryan Cady. Is the author on this, and I mentioned that for a reason, which I'll get to in a second. So this was a pretty dark book. And it really sort of hit me at the end of the issue when I read the letter from the writer Ryan Cady. And so this is a book this is sort of a horror / supernatural book where it revolves around a teenage girl who's in who's I don't want to call it a mental hospital. She's in a hospital and she's dealing with depression, a severe depression, but also like it starts off with her sort of seeing things, but they're not really there. And the way that this story evolved and how it sort of started to border on the supernatural at the end of the issue, it was just really well written. It was really well drawn. It really pulled me in. But you really feel for the characters here. You feel for the daughter and what she's going through, and she tries to make her re-entry back into high school, which you can only imagine, what the rumor mill and shit, is like. And you really feel for the father, and who's trying to do everything he can, for his daughter. He feels helpless. So then the turn that it takes at the end, you're like, holy fucking shit. And so I mentioned the writer because it's Ryan Cady, correct?
No, it's Ethan Sachs and Naomi Sachs.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of one of the other. Anyways, Ethan Sachs. And so who's the other writer? Naomi Sachs is his daughter, and she helped him write this.
Wow.
And he talks in the letter about the crippling depression, anxiety that his daughter went through or is going through. And he talked about how this started with him in the hospital and coming up with the sentence, writing this, and how it not only evolved, but then his daughter wanted to help him write it to get a better perspective.
Wow.
Right?
That's awesome.
So like that really hit me. And this is gonna sound lame as shit, and I don't mean it to be, but like I'm a father of a young girl, and with all the mental shit that I deal with and the shit that goes on, I think that's a real fear. Like, because as a parent, right, you never want your kid to have to go through that kind of shit. And the fact that he was so open about it in that letter at the end of the issue, like it hit me like Sean Lewis's letter did at the end of Bliss. Now it didn't bring me to tears, but I had read the full story at that point. This was just the first issue. So this very well could have that same impact on me, but it was also such a really well and interesting story that as soon as I go dibs, yeah, this is mine.
Yeah, and there are some awesome covers for this one too.
Yeah.
Fico Ossio did the variant cover, the main cover, which is by Joe Quesada and Richard Isanove. Those are, and I'm probably pronouncing that name.
Yeah, Ethan Sachs. Yeah, Naomi Sachs. Ryan Cady, I think, wrote another book.
Yeah, and then Marco Lorenzana is the artist for this.
Yeah.
Those two covers in particular caught my eye, and there's a few others as well. But yeah, nice one for you there. That's a good little little pickup there. For me, the first issue that I read this week, which I've been looking forward to, is Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, issue 1. And I was really excited for this because I see Brian Buccellato as the writer of this series, and he is the co-writer of No One. He wrote Chicken Devils as well. And then we have Stefano Simone as the artist, and then of course letterer extraordinaire Hassan Otsman Alao. And I still don't know if I'm saying that last part right, but I've profited on the rest of it. I've been very excited to check this one out because I think Brian does a great job, and this feels very real in a lot of ways. Feels very like a character that I think a lot of people can relate to, just because you have this idea that you want to live up to as a kid growing up, and then you get to that point, but you can't follow through with it. And as I sat on it and stewed on it even more and really thought about it, it's like, this is a book I want dibs on, because it was just like it's impactful in that way. And then there's other surprises that kind of come along, and this is so much. This first issue is all character development, and then like the last few pages, the plot, like you get like, oh shit, like okay, so now we're going to explore this. This is what's going to happen, and and Brian's already had you invested in this character by that time, and I really like that. So now I have this individual that I'm looking forward to. He's just turned 50, and his life is about to go in one direction, and then it gets turned upside down in one way, and then another thing comes up. So
did he go to Bel Air or go to West Philadelphia, where his life got flipped, turned upside down?
Yeah, I really missed the opportunity for a
damn right you did.
Fuck. Well, anyways, I really like the start to this. So I'm looking forward to the second issue. But yeah, pick up Midlife or How to Hero at 50, and the character development I think is going to help people really invest in this story after the first issue.
Nice.
So a couple of first issues. We didn't get to Knight's issue 1. Maybe one of us will check that one out. But did you get to? There's another book you have right now in this image grouping that you called dibs on. Did you get a chance to look at it?
Oh, I sure did, and I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. Other than it continues to be excellent, and what I loved about this issue is like some really fucked up shit happened. But you get where the title of the book comes from. The cull, right? To cull something means to right. So this was a really interesting issue. It's a really fucking fantastic series. Kelly Thompson is absolutely knocking out of the park with this. But I love that we get that little sort of nugget. It was just a phrase and part of it, some dialogue, and then it goes, oh, that's where the title of the book comes from. And we're still not any closer to the end game, but I love that. Because we're knee deep in this really bizarre sci-fi world, and what I don't know if sci-fi is the right fantasy type, but yeah, I guess sci-fi would apply. Just this really beautifully created world with these really weird creatures, and beings. That this is, again, can't wait to talk about it. I think you'd absolutely love this book, Nicholas.
Okay, I'm excited because this is one that I'd read the first issue and I was like, I like Kelly Thompson.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And then you said I rescinded dibs. I was like, I don't know if I'd pick up the second issue, and you loved it. So yeah, I'm always happy to be proven wrong when it comes to that sort of situation. Not so much vice versa. And then we have to wrap things up before we get into our main line. We have the 22nd installment of The Scorched by Sean Lewis, Todd McFarlane, and Steven Segovia. And I'll tell you what. Steven Segovia's had some really good issues, and it's again his style, and then you combine his style with the coloring of Ulysses Areola, and it's definitely different than what we get from Javier Fernandez over in King Spawn. And I've said it's like a sleeker kind of feel to it. My God, did this pairing absolutely go off? And then Sean had told us a while back, and obviously it's been a while since we've had Sean on. But even then, I'm sure I know they were ahead of us because obviously he's writing the damn thing. But like he must have been really, really far in advance, way more than I realized, because he hinted that stuff was going to go on with She-Spawn, and obviously some stuff happened a little while back, but I like where we had seen her kind of getting thrown back into the mix of things recently. I did not expect it to take the turn that it did in this issue, and now I mean, all bets are off. I will say, like, we know Gunslinger's supposedly out of the mix, and now we're going to get a major development with her this week as well. And on top of all that, a ton of great action, especially for her. I really love the character, and I love what Sean did with Jessica Priest in the direction that she's taken her in. And again, like, now it's like you have no idea what the fuck's going to happen with this team. I seriously have no idea what's going to happen with this book by and large. But again, holy shit. The first image that you get of Jessica Priest is amazing. But I'm looking at some of her fight sequences later on where she gets really fucking dirty. And it's like, oh, that's right. I forgot about that. And it's like, I talk about things being clean in this issue. But that may not be the right word.
Yeah, pun not intended, but intended. Like all hell is breaking loose, and that's what this issue was. It was literally hell just breaking loose, and the action panels in this were top notch, absolutely top fucking notch, man. Like just it's everything you want from a Spawn book, really.
Yeah. There's so I just mentioned that there were some jarring images and they kind of come in a little bit like, again, not spoiling things, but like that's in the middle of the issue. But there's one as you start to get into the second half, you bring up the panels and there's like this big spread that we get, but there's a few like sub panels within it. And there's one in particular that of She-Spawn alone within the spread.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit. Like that's, and when you read it too, it's like, wait, what the fuck's going on? And then it kind of makes sense a little bit later. But damn, like this is the best stuff that we've gotten from the Scorched.
Hands down, absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, awesome stuff from Sean and the rest of that team. All right, Joe, let's see if we still know how to do this. So it is the 86th mainline episode of TLDR, which
2 months was our last mainline issue.
Yeah, it's why we had a good streak going. We'll get another one in this month for sure, but it's been a little bit. But you do have a book that you want to tell me about that is of the season, of course, the spooky season, Dorktober. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this one because I know you've been dying to read it.
Dying.
You need to read this. Like you absolutely need to read this. So this is, I've mentioned it many times on the program before, but this is World Tree from Image Comics. Written by James Tynion IV, with art by Fernando Blanco, colors by Jordi Belair, and letter is Aditya Biddeker, a common team that Tynion works with, and they all just absolutely fucking kill it. So quick synopsis. In 1999, Gabriel and his friends discovered the Undernet, a secret architecture to the internet. They charted their exploration on a message board called World Tree. They lost control. Someone broke into World Tree, and someone who welcomed the violent hold on the Undernet had on this synopsis is really poorly written, by the way. A great personal cost to Gabriel and the others thought they sealed the Undernet away for good. They were wrong.
Before you continue further, because as I'm looking through some of the stuff that you have planned for this, I want to note early on for the people that World Tree is not just simply spelt WORLDTREE. The O, it's like code, right? The O is a zero, and then the E's in tree are threes. So that way, so if for those of you who go and maybe find this at your local comic book shop, make sure you're like on the lookout for that, because I could see like, at least the dumbass that I am, I would not put two and two together. Like, oh, that's World Tree. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, it's sort of like because this story revolves around like we'll call it the dark web, right? So like when we talked about Trojan, and it's dealing with the dark web shit, like special codes and shit to access like dark hidden parts of the internet where Friar watches his hentai. But so
I'm a married man. What the fuck?
Yeah, your balls are now pickling in a jar.
Wow,
on the mantle.
She's gonna kill you, dude.
Well, it's true, Nicholas. She's gonna be like, yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. He's mine
Okay.
now.
That last part is true, at least.
Yeah. So that's the premise, and that's what that's where the violence in this book stems from. So, I remember telling you after I read the first issue that Nightmare Country aside, because that was just like the art was just like weird and fucked up, like eyeballs for
Ooh.
fucking, or mouths for eye. I couldn't. I
I'm
couldn't
so
do it.
glad you reminded me.
I
I read
I
that.
couldn't fucking do it, right? But this felt like, Tynan just popped the restrictor plate off, of his writing ability and
Damn.
said, "You know what? I'm gonna fucking take this to 11, right? And we're gonna get fucking violent with it. We're gonna get gruesome with it. And on top of that, we're gonna tell a fucking tremendous story because that's what James Tynan does." So I would sort of classify this book as sort of horror and sci-fi. The sci-fi elements coming with there is a futuristic element to this, which I won't get into because I don't want to spoil things. But you're also dealing with the internet and the dark web and sort of these message boards things. And then the horror element is pretty much every goddamn panel of this fucking book. There is some sort of just vicious violence that is going on.
Amazing.
That is absolutely tremendous, and the brilliance of sort of Bel Air's colors to go with Blanco's art. It's just it's just constantly giving you that sort of uneasy, unsettling feeling, as you're reading this. So there's great character work in this, and I say that with at the same time, Tynan doesn't bog you down with a
Mm,
ton of juxtaposition or a ton of origin stuff with these characters. He gives you bits here and there. He gives you just enough so that you could appreciate the story and you get a good sense of who these characters are without really knowing a lot about them. There's a character that I'll talk about where you sort of he's you get the most about him, but there's a ton of different characters that work here that you don't really know a whole ton about, and I
mm,
like that. I really appreciated that because when you're dealing with 5-6 issue arcs here, you want to get to it, right? It's like when you're reading a Batman book and a Spider-Man book and a Superman book. We don't need their origin for the 10,000th time. And even though we're dealing with a new world here, new characters, I like that we just sort of got to it. You just sort of plunged into this world of chaos and you're just given the information that you need and nothing more, and it still makes a lot of fucking sense and it flows really well. And there's a reveal that we get in the fourth issue that is absolutely jaw-dropping, and that's another thing that I love, right? That you don't see it coming, you don't know what's really happening until you're at the end game. It's like that cliffhanger almost kind of thing. We're like, oh shit! Like we're this many issues. Like we're at the end. We're on the penultimate issue here of this particular arc, and now we're just getting this bit of information. Are you fucking me? Yes. It was just like the pacing of this was just so well done, and you get breadcrumbs sort of this reveal throughout. And when you're reading it for the first time, you've got no idea they're breadcrumbs. But I reread this again, and now I picked up on them and go, oh, fucking A, Tynan, you sneaky son of a bitch. I love it. And so what this book sort of gave me, like, this is not an apples to apples comparison. It's just sort of the vibes I got. But when I first read it, I was sort of like, I got this vibe of The Ring, which is a movie I've never watched, but I know the premise, right? So The Ring is like the people watch this fucking videotape and they're cursed and they're gonna die within 7 days.
I've
Well,
seen it.
right, but the thing with World Tree, like this dark web shit, there's a certain website, and if you go to you become possessed, and you will do whatever you're told. And the people who watch this, they're pretty much told to go on a murderous fucking rampage, right? And it's wild. So like
Damn.
again, it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it's to say like you see something and all of a sudden you're immediately sort of boom, and this thing exists in that undernet, in that dark web, in this world tree. We still don't really know exactly what world tree is, right? This sort of message board. We just know as you're reading it, like anyone who comes across this website, this link is automatically, sort of control. And that's how this book starts, right? This book starts with, you see an old man, answering the door, and you don't even see the person on the other side. You just sort of like, and all of a sudden you just see the dude's throat get slit. And then this person walks in the house, and you see this, the old man's wife, and she's like, "Oh, what is going on here?" And stab, 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 stab. And then you find out like this kid just went on like, he was in the midst of like a 60-person rampage throughout this neighborhood, right? And what the fuck? Like, that is vicious. It is violent, and like you finally you see who did it. He's like, "Did I make you happy? Did I please you?" Right? So you're like, "What the fuck?" Which then also sort of gave me vibes of The Purge. Again, another movie I didn't see, and I know the premise is one day a year you get to go out and do all this shit, and then it's good. So it's not the same, but like that, just that feeling of just like just this all out violence spree that occurs, and that's sort of what this comic is. It's like this all out violence spree, and that's the imagery, like, to me, like, it evokes like just like, terror, violence, carnage, chaos, right? That to me is like what The Purge is.
Yep.
And then you sort of add like those elements, like, again, not apples to apples, but like,
no, but I will say it's not apples to apples, and obviously I have not read it yet, but I will be reading this. Like, it was pretty much as soon as we fucking finished this episode. But the Ring comp, based on what you're saying, that sounds like a good comparison. And I want to say Trojan would also be a pretty good one because you have Dark Web, but at the same time, like the Killing Spree thing is, I don't know about The Purge, but I get why you're saying it.
Yeah, and so like the first issue, like so much happens because you get introduced to all these characters, and you don't really kind of like know how they fit in and sort of like who they are at first. But there's one character that is throughout, and it's this beautifully drawn woman who's naked the entire fucking series, and she's just fucking killing everyone. But she seems to be the main antagonist. You don't know how she fits in. You don't know where she comes from because she's got a very futuristic vibe to her. Sort of like a cyberpunk kind of vibe, to her. But she's the one that seems to be like that kid that I talked about. Said, did I please you? Did I make you happy?
Yeah.
It's her that he's talking to. So you don't know where she comes from. You don't know how she fits into all this, but she's very intriguing. And there's, again, this is all first issue stuff. There's a scene where the kid that committed all these murders, his name is Gibson. He's a high school kid, for fuck's sake, right? And he's in, he turned himself in. The cops, like, he was just standing in the middle of the road covered in blood, and there's all these houses in this road of just like dead bodies everywhere. So he's in jail at the local police station, and his brother, who happened to be just on his way with his girlfriend, just sort of coming back home to visit family. This is the other thing that's wild too, is that we get a whole bunch of these panels where there's not a lot of action going. It's this kid's older brother Ellison and his girlfriend Fosta, and he's sort of like saying, "Now my younger brother, he's a little weird, and so I don't want you to be put off." She's like, "What do you think he's going to say something that's going to offend me?" Because he's just a fucking weird kid, and he's been talking to me about this weird dark web shit he's been into. And she's like, "Well, let me just go see how weird he is." And she's scrolling, she finds his socials, and he had been posting all of his kills on his social media, like live streaming them, and she sees it, and like the panel of her just like pull over with like tears coming down her face, like you feel that it's a very guttural sort of like feeling. So he shows up at the police station. He's like, "Where's my brother? What's going on here?" And then you see this, you see this naked woman show up, and she just holds up a phone, and she's showing all the cops this website, and you can see them all automatically becoming hypnotized. And then she just fucking shoots them all, fucking kills them all. Right?
I can't believe that Tynion wrote this, right? Like,
yeah, I'm telling you, man.
Of the moment. That's amazing.
Yeah. So like, that's the kind of like visceral violence you're dealing with here, on top of what is an absolutely excellent story. And like I said, you combine that with Fernando Blanco's art and and Jordi Belair's colors, and even the lettering is phenomenal, because you get some really cool stuff done with the lettering. Is absolutely fantastic. And so where this story goes throughout because it's a 5-issue story, 6th issue, I believe the start of the next arc is dropping in December. And where it goes, and the players that are involved, and you do get some origins of the of World Tree, right, which is important. You do kind of need that, and you get a little bit of origins of one of the characters I'll talk about in a second, but like that's all you need. And it's like, we gotta fucking fix this shit, because if we don't, you know the end of the world is coming. And that is like, when people see this website, it's sort of like Clockwork Orange, where the eyes get peeled back and you're like forced to see all this violent imagery. But what these people are seeing is they're seeing like the end of the world, and it's some really fucked up shit. So some of the characters, as I mentioned, Ellison, he's one of the main characters, but I don't know if I would call him a main character, but it's his little brother, like who gets the story going by just fucking killing everyone and sort of setting off this chain reaction to events. And then you got his girlfriend Fausta, and she's a podcaster. She sees it, all of a sudden she like sees this as an opportunity to, holy fuck, there's some really, like, it's like a crime podcasting. There's a really good story here. And in the process of her, like, while Ellison's at the police station dealing with all the shit he's got to deal with, she sneaks into the fucking kid's house, and they're waiting for her is on the keyboard is a fucking post-it with the link and a password. So she fucking does it, and then she gets fucking pulled in. And what happens with her is fucking wild. You've got Gabriel, who I would sort of, he is one of the main, he's probably the main character. He's the guy you find out that him and a bunch of his friends, when they were younger, they sort of developed World Tree. They stumbled upon it, and they're the ones really for like, like they sort of, I don't know if they created it, or if they just sort of discovered it and sort of, fostered it into being, but they had to shut it down because of what was going to happen and what was happening. It was nothing to the scale of what we get at the start of this issue. And then so you get like the origin of that, you get sort of their story, and then how they need to stop it before it gets out of hand, like it looks like it's doing. Is absolutely fantastic stuff. And then you have the Naked Woman, who is known as PH34R, and she's fucking ruthless. And when you get her sort of backstory and all of that, you're just like, oh man, it's just so fucking good, Nicholas. I can't wait for you to read this and for you to text me and just with the fucking eyeball emojis, because it is so good. It is ultra violent, and wildly entertaining all at once.
Gabriel's not at all like related to Ellison, right? He doesn't know like him.
No. But
Okay.
he's like, so Gabriel is sort of this like, he's a tech guy. He's
Right.
like, think of like, if Bill Gates wasn't such a fucking nerd.
Oh, okay.
Right? He's super wealthy, super rich, and he's able to like keep tabs on everything. So he knows. Like all of a sudden, this girl comes out of nowhere, and all this stuff is being live cast, and he's like, "Oh shit!"
Okay.
And so,
Unless my brain skipped a beat, you didn't talk about Gibson.
Yeah, like I said, like Gibson, like
try to save stuff.
Yeah, Gibson is the catalyst for all this. You'll
got it. Okay,
you'll get it when you read it.
I got him confused. Okay, my apologies. Yeah. Okay, him and Ellison. Okay, yeah. As I've said many times, like I don't know if I've ever had like such FOMO for a book as I have for World Tree. From the jump, I was like, this is going to kick ass. When I mean, honestly, the title, like I wanted to mention that, not just because I don't want people to accidentally like skim past it in the shop, but also it's just like, to me, that's part of what sucked me in. And then some of the covers that we've seen too for this, and I feel like quite a few of them, the ones that really brought me in, were of PH34R. I'm pretty sure, without having looked at the interiors, but damn, man, this looks fucking so good. I'm so glad, and I really appreciate you not wasting time to talk about this on the show, because I'm dying to talk about it. So yeah, this sounds absolutely freaking amazing, and I don't think, honestly, hearing you talk about it, it sounds like it could be a movie or a show, but I feel like until this whole thing's fleshed out, you can't make that call.
Yeah, like I said, there's like the way it ends, and sort of like I could see this being like, like a 3-season show. That seems to be all the rage these days. We're gonna make a show, have it be a couple seasons, tell a nice tight story, and I could see that here. I could see it being a movie, but I feel like there's a lot. There's a lot you would want to tell because there's a lot you could flesh out in this. Like, going back a little, is this? It really could be either or, but I would almost want this to be like a 2-3 season type show.
Yeah, and I gotta say too, I'm like, I don't obviously, I picked up the first issue of this. I haven't picked up the other one since, but I will obviously be checking this out right away. I like, I'm, as much as I've been like dying to read it and like had serious FOMO, I'm actually pretty happy that I'm gonna be able to like read this all at once because I
You're
want,
gonna
yeah,
fly right through it. It's that good.
I have no doubt about that. Speaking of books that I flew through, so when I was away in Greece, I brought a couple trades with me. I did have my iPad where I was able to read stuff as well. But one of the trades was something that I picked up from a while back, actually, random one that I picked up at a Barnes and Noble when Lauren and I were, I don't know, somewhere else in New England, not in our general area. But it's the plot from Vault Comics from their Nightfall imprint, which I believe the Nasty is under the Nightfall imprint, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, by friend of the show, John Lees. Now, the writers for this series are Tim Daniel and Michael Morisi. And you hear Michael Morisi and wonder if you're wondering why that name is familiar. It's because I've talked about him quite a bit because he does Barbaric for Vault.
Oh, yes.
He's the writer of that series. So I'm a fan of his, and I feel like I need to look in to see if there's other stuff that he's done because he's doing a great job with the Barbaric universe, not just Barbaric, but also Queen of Swords. Really enjoyed that as well. Then the artist on this series is Joshua Hickson, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Colors, Jordan Boyd. Letters, Jim Campbell. So this is an 8-issue series from Vault. I do wonder in some capacity if there was at all an issue because of COVID and like I think this story was meant to be an 8-issue series, but this got interrupted. This started at some point in 2019. I forget exactly when, but it was moving along, and then like the last issue was March of 2020, and then obviously we all know what happened. And I think it didn't come back till July, and then ended up finishing at some point in early 2020. So maybe it was meant to finish right around spooky season, so that way the trade paperbacks will both be available for everybody. But it is in two trade paperbacks. I think reading it, I never felt like, oh, this should go on for on and on and on. It is one of those stories that feels like it should be finite, but I just can't help but wonder, because of the nature of things from around 2020. As for the synopsis of this, Chase Blaine tried to run from his family, but his estranged brother's death draws him back. He returns to his ancestral home, but built on a vast ancient bog where secrets just won't stay drowned. So the main character of this again is Chase Blaine. He is one of the two Blaine men who the two last Blaine sons to live in Cape Augusta, which I wanted to confirm, make sure that wasn't like an actual place. As far as I can tell, there is not an actual Cape Augusta, but it feels like it's somewhere set in like Louisiana in the bayou. It's like one of those old like mansions there, although maybe the mansion has more of like a northern vibe because of the roofs. But anyways, it's fucking creepy, and it has that Louisiana bog shit. Then he's like the of the two brothers. So Charles is his brother. As you know in the synopsis, his late brother. Charles is the more successful of the two. Chase is, he does his own thing in like construction demolition, but at the same time, like he's a fuck up. Like he's got a mess. He's a bit of a mess, and it's had some issues back in Cape Augusta. But he up until returning to his ancestral home hadn't been there. Charles also had not been there. Charles was a very successful businessman. His wife Wendy was right alongside him, supporting him and working with him to build their company. And there was a lot of like family stuff tied into what they do. And a big quote with their family, and before you receive, you must give. And I think I'm paraphrasing. I should have jotted down the exact phrasing, but that kind of sentiment is brought up over and over throughout the course of the series. And also, Charles and Wendy have 2 kids. We have Mackenzie, who is their older daughter. She's a teenager. I want to say like 15-ish, maybe a little bit younger, give or take. And then Zach, I would say, is around 8 years old. Big thing with him is he does not talk. He's just like, he just does not talk. And I'll tell you what, there's something that happens to that kid pretty early on in this story, in the scheme of things. And it's like, oh, well, I kind of get why I can, like, this isn't why you weren't talking before, but fuck, now you're definitely not going to talk shit. I felt real bad. And then another character who we meet, and she comes up a little bit later in the first arc, but I don't mind introducing her this early. I just won't give much up, is Reese. And she is Chase's old fling. And I'll tell you what, man, she's got some insight that people aren't aware of, but the readers become aware of as things go along. And again, like, she's gone through some shit, and she gets, I got just thinking about her, she gets really, really weird in especially in the second volume of this series. But this is largely centered around Chase. She does become a major part of things. The biggest thing here is this is all about like family trauma and family responsibility, and just how those kind of things are passed down over the years. And not just how they're passed down, but not fully fucking fleshed out in the course of like, going from generation to generation. You just know, like, the story starts out with Charles talking about his old man, and explaining how he had his issues and all this stuff. And like, you find out what that kind of stuff is later on, but by and large, you're in the dark. And guess what? The readers aren't the only ones who are in the fucking dark about this. And it's kind of ridiculous how that kind of things happen, but it feels very much real. They're just things that, don't get passed down from parents to kids for whatever different reason. I feel like usually it's to protect them in some capacity, but still, that like somehow that trauma can find its way to like get into their life, and they have to deal with it on their own without any frame of reference whatsoever. So this is what that's about in a lot of ways. But also, this is a monster story. Like clear cut. I don't want to describe the monster to you, Joe, because I want you to get as surprised as I was when you go and give this one a look. And actually, I did pick up the first volume on at Barnes and Noble, but you can also check this out on Hoopla as well. So if you want to check out the first volume, then pick up the second. I guarantee you, if you like the first volume of this, you're gonna like the second volume and how things transpire. But again, this is a monster story. I would not call this like gory or grisly, but it does get violent at times. And especially early in this first one, it's like you kind of don't know where it's going to go originally. Like, I read very little about the plot before this. I actually didn't even know what they were referring to when they said the plot. It becomes kind of clear as you read the story. And I think even in the in some ways in the synopsis, it becomes kind of clear. But I didn't know much, and then I was very much surprised in the first issue. So I don't want to, where you were able to talk about it with WorldTree and do that sometimes, I can't really do that here. But the biggest thing is, while there is some level of violence in this, where this is going to fuck with you and why I'm telling you should probably read this during the day, Joe, there are a lot of creepy images of characters or monsters. And it's not just like one, like you see this one monster that's kind of reoccurring, but you see other things take a similar form, but they kind of just come out of nowhere. Sometimes they're in the background a little bit. And for me, that's the stuff that's like, that's the really fucking scary shit. Like we talk about like Hill House, like there's a lot of like shit in the background that just pops up out of nowhere. It's like very quietly and casually. Like sometimes you got, if you're paying attention and looking around, you'll see it. And if you're not, it'll surprise you at the last minute. That's kind of what happens in throughout WorldTree. That's like Bunny Mask is similar. Bunny Mask is more similar in that it has like these this really creepy individual that kind of just fucks with you and can pop up out of nowhere. So that's where these two are kind of the I guess the line between the two. But I absolutely love this. I love the start. I love the first issue and how like it sets the tone for things. Because again, you don't like you think it's going one way and then it really rips you fast in another, and then it's like we talk about like setting the hooks in the first issue. This is like textbook way to do it. This is absolutely perfectly done, and also like this reads really, really fast. Like I absolutely crushed both volumes of this. Like I as soon as I finished the first one, I was like, I got to make sure I get the second one. It was on Hoopla, so I was able to get on top of that right away. So absolute must read stuff, especially for this time of year. I think for you, I would recommend you read this in the daytime. Yeah, I think some stuff would scare the piss out of you at night.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Most of these books I got to read during the goddamn day, but that's just my my lot in life, I guess.
Yeah, and I think as far as like movie television conversation, I think it's absolutely best suited as a movie. I do think
Sounds like it.
Be better of the two. Like if you made it like TV show, like you couldn't do multiple seasons, but if you wanted to make this like a limited series, however you want to put that, like maybe if you can do that with like 5-6 episodes, still I think you could do this in one nice like 2-hour movie. I just wonder if you can set the hooks in about the family trauma stuff, because there's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, but still, like I really enjoyed this. Either way, like I would love to see this, like obviously put into live action in some capacity. I think you got something. There's something special here.
Yeah, it's a good way to kick off spooky season, Nick.
Yes,
not a traditional horror story, I think, World Tree, but it is definitely going to it's going to rattle you a little bit with the imagery.
I'm very excited.
Damn sure.
Yeah, I was very excited to hear about this and very excited to kick off spooky season. Not getting really to do as much between the show and then just in my personal life as much last year, because that's kind of when we started looking into like wedding stuff.
We had all interviews, I think, just how it all lined up last year.
So many. Yeah, we had a ton last year. Not that we haven't had a lot this year, but I feel like we had even more. But yeah, so all right, so that concludes things. We will be doing another set of scary books next week. I already know you mentioned actually the book that I'm going to be talking about next week. I am very excited to dig into that.
Did
I? You did. I'll tell you what it was afterwards, but I'll leave the people, setting the hooks into the people and make them come back for episode 87 of TLDR. Until next week, though, Joe, stay sexy.
You fucking know it, baby. And that was